Daddy, her baby is freezing. How a CEO single dad and his little girl saved a homeless mother, the Christmas miracle on Park Avenue. The snow fell thick and heavy on Christmas Eve, blanketing Manhattan in a pristine white coat that seemed to mock the harsh realities beneath. Daniel Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, walked briskly down Park Avenue, his 7-year-old daughter Lily's small hand tucked firmly in his. The city lights twinkled around them, and despite the cold, Lily's eyes sparkled with the magic of the season. "Daddy, can we look at the window displays one more time?" Lily tugged at his cashmere coat, her breath forming little clouds in the freezing air. Daniel checked his Rolex. They were already running late for the company's Christmas gala. But when he looked down at those pleading hazel eyes, so much like her mother's, he couldn't refuse. Catherine had been gone for 3 years now, and Daniel had learned that these small moments with Lily were more valuable than any business meeting. "5 minutes, Princess. Then we really have to go." They approached the bus stop shelter, where an elaborate toy store display stood across the street. That's when Lily suddenly stopped, her hand going slack in his daddy. She whispered, her voice trembling. "Look." Daniel followed her gaze to a figure huddled on the bench inside the shelter. A young woman, maybe in her mid-20s, wearing a threadbare coat that had probably been donated years ago. But what stopped Daniel's heart was the bundle she clutched to her chest. A baby, no more than a few months old, wrapped in what looked like a thin hospital blanket. The infant's tiny face was pale, almost blue in the harsh fluorescent light of the shelter. "Daddy, her baby is freezing!" Lily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He'd seen countless homeless people in the city. He was ashamed to admit he learned to look past them, to insulate himself from their suffering. But through his daughter's eyes, he suddenly saw what he'd been missing, another human being in desperate need. Before he could react, Lily had pulled away from him and was running toward the shelter. "Lily, wait!" Daniel called out, but she was already there, kneeling beside the woman. By the time Daniel reached them, Lily had already taken off her pink scarf, the one her grandmother had knit for her last Christmas, and was gently trying to wrap it around the baby. "Please," Lily said softly to the woman, "my scarf is really warm. Your baby needs it." The young woman looked up, and Daniel saw her face clearly for the first time. She was beautiful despite the dirt and exhaustion etched into her features. Her dark eyes were filled with a profound sadness that spoke of depths of suffering Daniel couldn't begin to imagine. And in those eyes he saw something else, the fierce protective love of a mother. I can't take that from you, sweetheart," the woman said, her voice hoarse. "It's yours. But your baby needs it more," Lily insisted. "See? She's shivering." Daniel knelt down beside his daughter, finally finding his voice. "My daughter is right. Please, let us help." The woman's eyes met his, searching for mockery or pity, but Daniel made sure she saw only genuine concern. After a long moment, she nodded, allowing Lily to wrap the scarf around the baby, who indeed was trembling in the cold. "What's your name?" Daniel asked gently. "Victoria," she whispered. "And this is Grace. She's 4 months old. Victoria, I'm Daniel, and this is Lily. How long have you been out here?" Victoria's face crumpled slightly before she composed herself. 3 days. We were staying at a shelter in Queens, but they were full. They said to try again after Christmas, but Grace, she's been sick. I've been trying to keep her warm, but..." Her voice broke, and Daniel saw the absolute desperation of a mother who'd run out of options. Lily was now sitting beside Victoria, cooing softly at baby Grace, who had stopped shivering under the scarf but still looked alarmingly pale. "Daddy, we have to do something," Lily said, looking up at him with complete trust that he could fix this. "We can't just leave them here." "It's Christmas Eve!" Daniel's mind raced. He thought of the gala, the investors waiting, the speeches he was supposed to give. Then he looked at Victoria, at baby Grace, at his daughter's compassionate face, and suddenly none of that mattered. "You're right, sweetheart. He turned to Victoria. Victoria, I'm not going to leave you here. Will you let me help you? Victoria looked skeptical, scared even. I can't. What do you mean? First, we need to get Grace to a hospital. She needs to be checked out. When was the last time you ate? Yesterday morning. But Grace needs formula. I've been trying to stretch what I have, but... Stop, Daniel said firmly but kindly. No more trying to survive alone. Let me help. Please. Something in his tone must have convinced her because Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face. Okay. An hour later, Daniel had called his driver, gotten them all to Mount Sinai Hospital, and was sitting in the emergency room while doctors examined Grace. He'd sent a quick text to his assistant about missing the gala, something he never did, and was now watching Victoria eat her first real meal in days, while Lily sat beside her, chattering about her favorite Christmas cookies. The doctor emerged with Grace bundled in warm hospital blankets. She's going to be fine, she said with a smile. Mild hypothermia and slight dehydration, but nothing that warmth, fluids, and rest won't cure. You got her here just in time. Victoria burst into tears, and Daniel found his own eyes stinging. Thank you, Victoria sobbed. Thank you so much. I was so scared. You're a good mother, the doctor said firmly. You did what you had to do to survive. Now let's make sure you get the support you need. While Victoria was being checked, Daniel made phone calls. To his lawyer, to social services contacts he knew through his philanthropy work, to a friend who ran a transitional housing program. By the time Victoria was released a few hours later, Daniel had arranged temporary housing in a safe, warm apartment that his company kept for visiting executives. I don't understand, Victoria said as Daniel explained. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Daniel looked at Lily, who had fallen asleep in a chair, still clutching her coat. My daughter taught me something tonight. She saw someone in need and didn't hesitate. She didn't think about inconvenience or cost or any of the things we adults use to justify passing by. She just saw another person who needed help. He turned back to Victoria. 3 years ago, I lost my wife, Lily's mother, to cancer. It nearly destroyed me. For months, I was lost, just going through the motions. One night, Lily came into my room and said, Daddy, Mommy would want us to be happy and help people like she always did. She was only 4 years old, but she was right. Victoria wiped her eyes. I'm sorry about your wife, thank you. The point is, I've spent the last 3 years building a company, making money, thinking I was honoring Catherine's memory by providing for our daughter. But tonight, Lily showed me that the best way to honor her mother is to have her mother's heart, to see people who are suffering and do something about it. Over the next few weeks, Daniel learned Victoria's story. She'd been a nursing student when she got pregnant. The baby's father had disappeared, and Victoria's family, deeply religious and disapproving, had disowned her. She'd tried to work and go to school, but had fallen behind on rent when Grace was born prematurely and needed extended hospital care. One thing had led to another, and suddenly she was on the streets with a newborn, too proud to beg and too desperate to know what else to do. Daniel didn't just provide housing. He connected Victoria with child care services, helped her re-enroll in nursing school, and even offered her a part-time job in Blackwood Enterprises Employee Health Services once she graduated. But more than that, Lily and Victoria's daughter Grace became inseparable. Victoria and Grace became regular visitors to the Blackwood home, and slowly, something neither Daniel nor Victoria had been looking for began to bloom. Friendship, understanding, and eventually, love. Daniel had been alone since Catherine's death, convinced that no one could ever fill that void. But Victoria wasn't trying to fill it. She was creating something new, something different, but equally beautiful. She saw him not just as the successful CEO, but as the father who dropped everything to help a stranger, the man who still cried when he talked about his late wife, the person who was trying to be good in a world that often rewarded selfishness. And Victoria, Daniel saw her strength, her resilience, her fierce love for her daughter. He saw how she refused to be defined by her circumstances. how she worked tirelessly to build a better life for Grace, how she brought joy and light back into his and Lily's home. A year later, on Christmas Eve, the Blackwood family, now expanded to 4, returned to that same bus shelter on Park Avenue. But this time, they weren't passing by. They were distributing warm clothes, food, and information about shelters and services to anyone who needed help. It had become the Blackwood family Christmas tradition. "Daddy," Lily said, now 8 and even more confident, "do you think that lady over there needs a blanket? Why don't you go ask her, Princess?" As Lily ran off with a blanket and her signature kindness, Daniel felt an arm slip through his. Victoria, now wearing a nursing student's uniform under her coat, smiled up at him. Grace, toddling now and wearing Lily's old pink scarf, held his other hand. "You know," Victoria said softly, "a year ago, I was sitting right there, thinking I'd hit rock bottom. I couldn't see any way out. And then an angel in a pink coat came and gave us a scarf. Lily is pretty special," Daniel agreed. "She learned it from you, and from her mother's spirit that lives in both of you." Daniel squeezed her hand. In his pocket was a small velvet box he'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. But as he looked around at the people they were helping, at Lily's joyful face, at little Grace giggling in the snow, he realized the right moment wasn't about perfect timing. It was about perfect love. "Victoria," he said, stopping and turning to face her. "A year ago, my daughter saved your life. But what she didn't know was that she was saving mine, too. I'd been living in the past, going through the motions, afraid to feel again. And then you came into our lives, not asking for anything, just trying to survive with dignity and love. You showed me what real strength looks like, what real love looks like." He knelt down in the snow, right there on Park Avenue, as pedestrians stopped to watch. Grace clapped her little hands, somehow understanding something special was happening. Lily came running back, her eyes wide. "Victoria, I know this might seem fast, but when you've lived through loss, you learn not to waste time on fear. You and Grace have become our family. Will you make it official? Will you marry me?" Victoria's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, yes, of course." As he slipped the ring on her finger, Lily cheered and threw her arms around both of them. Grace, not wanting to be left out, grabbed onto Daniel's leg. Around them, the small crowd of onlookers applauded. "You know what the best part is?" Victoria whispered in his ear as they stood up. "Grace will grow up knowing that kindness changes everything. That one small act of compassion can change the course of someone's entire life. And Lily will grow up knowing that her kindness didn't just save 2 people that night," Daniel added. "It saved 4, because I was just as lost as you were. I just had a better coat and a warmer place to sleep." 5 years later, the Blackwood family had grown even more. Victoria had graduated nursing school at the top of her class and now ran a medical clinic specifically for homeless families, funded by Blackwood Enterprises. Lily, now 12, volunteered there every weekend, teaching younger children to read. Grace, now 5, had become Lily's shadow, learning the same compassion that had saved her mother's life. But every Christmas Eve, without fail, the family returned to that bus shelter on Park Avenue. They brought food, blankets, medical supplies, and most importantly, hope. And every year, Lily would tell the story of the night she met her baby sister for the first time, wrapped in nothing but a thin blanket and her new pink scarf. "The thing is," Lily would say to anyone who listened, "we always think homeless people are strangers. But that night, I didn't see a stranger. I saw my future mom and my future sister. I just didn't know it yet." Daniel would always tear up at that part, remembering the little girl who had taught him to see, with his heart instead of just his eyes. And Victoria would hold baby Grace, now not so much a baby anymore, and silently thank God for pink scarves, winter storms, and little girls who refused to walk past suffering. On this particular Christmas Eve, As snow began to fall again, just like it had 5 years ago, a young man approached their distribution table. He was thin, shivering, and carrying everything he owned in a garbage bag. "Excuse me," he said hesitantly. "I heard you help people. I lost my job and my apartment, and I don't know what to do." Before Daniel could respond, Lily had already jumped up, grabbing a warm coat. "Here," she said, handing it to him with a smile that could melt ice. "Let's start with getting you warm. Then we'll figure out the rest together." Victoria caught Daniel's eye across the table, and they shared a smile. Their family had been built on a single moment of kindness on a cold Christmas Eve, and now they were paying it forward, one person at a time, one moment of compassion at a time. "Merry Christmas," Grace said to the young man, handing him a cup of hot chocolate with the seriousness only a 5-year-old can muster. "Don't worry, my daddy fixes everything." And as Daniel looked at his family, the daughter who had started it all, the wife who had shown him how to love again, and the little girl who wouldn't be alive if not for a pink scarf, he realized that Grace was right. Love really did fix everything. The end, sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected packages, and sometimes an angel wears a pink coat and carries a hand-knit scarf. This Christmas, remember, you never know when a single act of kindness might change not just one life, but an entire family's destiny forever.